This is probably live now. Having some technical days. Okay, everything's working. Looks like everything's working. Hello, and welcome to the 8:30 live. And YouTube's on. So I don't know if they missed that, but I said hello. So I have some good news and bad news. Bad news is it's been a pretty busy weekend. So I did not get to watch very much of Watchmen after all. And with 9 episodes, each clocking in an hour, I'm afraid to say that I probably won't be able to finish the series. Lily, sup? What's going on with you? How is Canada today? So, unfortunately, yeah, I'm probably going to have to find another way to watch Watchmen because it ain't getting watched this weekend, which makes me very sad. It was an entire plan. But then work got in the way. There's always a thing, I got to say. And usually it's on the weekends, which is annoying. And of course, we have elections coming up today, which means that I had to devote some serious hours to volunteering for candidates in which I believe, and maybe even writing some stuff, like an endorsement that I think folks are anxious to see tomorrow. Hey, your live was only 16 minutes last night. What the heck? Well, the situation with the live is it's only as long as there is news that I've found and think is interesting to share, and as long as the comments are, like, take me to go through. And because I've been so busy this weekend, as I was just explaining, I haven't been really scouring or looking for news. And this is because, as I just mentioned, but I will repeat since folks keep joining, there's an election on Tuesday, and I've been volunteering and helping candidates with that. And I honestly have a fair bit of work still to do tonight. And I also have a regular gig that I do. Well, I don't know if it's regular, an irregular gig that I do, which does take up a ridiculous amount of time. I'm working with my friend in an education startup. So, announcement here. And there's just a ridiculous amount of work that's involved with that. And we are pitching somebody on a thing at the end of today. So there's been a lot to do this weekend. That being said, I do know of 2 things that happened, but if folks want to discuss anything, please throw it in the comments. But Trump's rally is one thing we're going to talk about, and the K-pop stands and all this. And I as cool as it is that everybody ordered 1 billion trillion tickets online, I have some thoughts on that might be a bit unorthodox. Well, unorthodox for the news media, not unorthodox for organizers, because I posted my thoughts, and my friend was like, lol, you're literally thinking what every organizer is thinking. But it's certainly not the mainstream coverage of the event. So let's get into it. Simon Sachs says, hi, Ben. I say, hello, Simon, in return. Dorian Key, why didn't you cover Trump's rally last night and give the DNC response? Well, the answer to that question is I don't have a way to cover the rally on my live. I guess I could throw it on the TV here, but it wouldn't come across so well. And also, I don't give a crap about what Trump has to say. And the second is I'm not a member of the DNC. And even if I were a member of the DNC, I still likely wouldn't be on leadership. So for me to give the DNC response is maybe not within my power. I could give a Democratic response in an unofficial capacity. But that being said, what is there to respond to about Trump other than, he said some stuff about their testing, and if we tested less, we'd have less cases. It's just nonsense. But what we can talk about is what his rally represents and what the numbers from his rally mean and what the strategy or really tactic of having a bunch of people request or eat up all the tickets means for campaigns, which I will argue that it doesn't mean that much. But that being said, Julian Ballington, I will pay your subscription if you will watch it. I appreciate that, but I don't really think that you should be spending your money on my HBO subscription. Even though I would like to watch it, I'm sure there's a way for me to acquire it. Maybe somebody can share their HBO Go with me. Who knows? I'm going to find out, though. Lily says, I assume great, but I'm in Orlando. Oh, yeah, you're in Orlando. Why? Florida's like COVID central. What are you doing in Florida? Be careful. Don't go outside. Wear a mask. Wear a gas mask. Get a respirator. Have your own oxygen wherever you go. Okay, so that being said, let's talk momentarily about Trump's rally, which I didn't watch, and I hope nobody else watched either. The last thing that dude needs is ratings. Although I did see a video of him looking very dejected, and it's probably he was walking out of Air Force Two, No, not Air Force Two, Marine One, which is the helicopter. He was walking out of Marine One to the White House, tie, completely undone, first two buttons of his shirt open, not leaning forward, because I guess that's what he does when he feels like he's got to go somewhere, just sort of slouching down, almost walking like a human being, looking very sad. And I was like, I've never seen Donald Trump look like a human being, but now he looks like a human being. I almost feel bad for him, except that he brings it all upon himself. But we'll get to the low numbers at his rally in a second and like what it means. But Trump leads Biden in cash on hand, 265 million to 122.2 million. Yeah, Donald Trump has a ridiculous amount of money, like a lot of money. He has already spent more than the entire primary cost amongst all the candidates. So the dude is way out in front. I mentioned this. We spoke about his what was it called? We spoke about his Truth Over Facts video, which I thought was hilarious. I actually have to go look and see if they put up another one. But like, it was an expensive, well-produced video ad that I'm sure brought in some data, some valuable data, because it's slickly produced and, unlike his rally, wasn't completely overrun by scammers and fakers. So he's not only got a lot of money, but he's spending his money and he's experimenting, which is a bit, it's those experiments that advance your campaign strategy, because they give you the data and the feedback on what works and what doesn't and how better to target people and influence them. So yes, Lily says, using the N95, becoming the compatriot on Monday, becoming you compatriot on Monday, and the ceremony is here. What does that mean? What is becoming you compatriot on Monday? And what ceremony is this? Yes, please explain, because I don't understand what that means. But I'm glad you're using an N95, as that will filter the air at least. How's running on that thing? I know you like it. Okay, so Trump's rally, 19,000 person stadium, 6,200 person attendance. Even though the campaign said that they had millions of people, or 1 million people request. Lily's become a U.S. citizen just in time for the whole thing to implode. Congratulations, Lily. You'll have free movement, except for the fact that coming into New York will require 2 weeks of quarantine. You'll have access to our wonderful welfare system, like our wonderful Social Security system, which will surely implode by the time that we grow up and need it. And you'll have access to amazing healthcare. Seriously, aren't you Canadian? Like, what are you doing? And Dorian, do you know anyone actively working on Biden's campaign right now by any chance? Yes, I do. Let's talk about that offline. All right, here we go. Trump rally, 19,000 person stadium, 6,200 person attendance. And the Trump campaign thought that 1 million folks would show up because 1 million tickets were snatched online. Now, here's the deal. People are saying, oh, the Zoomers and the K-pop stans, they all went in there and they grabbed all the tickets, totally bamboozling the Trump campaign, making them think that a lot of people were going to show up and humiliating them. It was a complete win for the anti-Trumpers. And that is true in that it made Donald Trump look like a moron. Although I think to most of us on this side of the aisle, we already thought he was a moron. It did result in them taking down the overflow area because there was no overflow. And it is unclear, however, actually, I don't want to say that. Well, they set up an overflow area on the assumption that there'd be a lot of people there. But it's really, to me, completely unclear that it was the purchasing of all of these tickets that left the stadium empty. So I want to tell you how political rallies work, because I've been in politics for a long time and I've been to an awful lot of events. Even for fundraisers, unless it's a very, very high fundraiser at a private home, basically nobody ever gets turned away from an event. If you show up to a fundraiser, A, they're happy to take your money at the door generally, and B, if you just act like you're supposed to be there, they'll generally just let you in, or if you make a fuss, because there's almost always room. The reality of the stadium is that if 19,000 people had shown up, even if they had given out 1 million tickets, everybody who waited online would likely have ended up in that stadium. That is why people camp out, because it's a first come, first served basis. It doesn't actually matter that much whether you have a ticket. Sometimes they'll put aside ticket holders and non-ticket holders and make sure that ticket holders get in first. But you might remember the event in Brooklyn with Elizabeth Warren and Castro, where there was a huge line outside. Not everybody got in. And Warren and Castro came out and said, we'll do a second event to make sure everybody gets in. So the reason people camp out for Trump is because they worry that there won't be a spot if they get there late, knowing that the tickets aren't really that meaningful. So what does it mean that only 6,200 people showed up? It's not a Kevin Federline concert, right? I know the Zoomers are way too young to remember this, but there was a person named Kevin Federline who was a backup dancer for Britney Spears, who started sleeping with his boss, so to speak, and then became a musician in his own right, sort of. His music was so bad that people thought it would be fitting if they bought up all of his concert tickets and then didn't attend, thereby having him perform in front of an empty stadium or an empty concert hall. That worked brilliantly. Kevin Federline canceled his tour. That's not how it works with a presidential or political rally, because people aren't paying for admittance. You're not guaranteed anything. In fact, they're trying to just pack people in to the space. So the Kevin Federline strategy doesn't really make a difference, because if you show up, they're just going to let you in. It doesn't cost anybody anything. They've already rented the stadium. So this low attendance is probably the result not of a bunch of tickets being, quote, sold and then people not showing up. It's the result of people not showing up. And that's the entire story. Only 6,200 people wanted to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma to see the president give his speech in the era of COVID. Now, there are a lot of compounding factors. There is the possibility that some people said, oh, there's 1 million tickets. I'm never going to be able to get in. I won't be able to get there early enough because there's so many people who are interested. Okay, there is that potential compounding factor, but I don't know. Trump's base is notoriously rabid. So I don't know if that's a huge dissuading factor. Also, it happened to be in Oklahoma, where his base is easily able to access the event, right? It's not like they held it in the Northeast in Maine or something. It's basically in the middle of Trump country. 2, people did not want to risk COVID, and they definitely didn't want to sign something that gave away their rights, as was being required by the campaign. So they were scared away by COVID, even though the president continues to say that it's not an issue. That's another possible factor. A third possible factor is just that people aren't that into Donald Trump anymore. He's got his extremely loyal base that will go and camp out, and then he's turned a lot of people off. So these are all possible factors. The one thing that we can say about the effort to get as many tickets as possible is that it confounded and befuddled their efforts to collect any data. The Trump campaign was saying that it collected a lot of data because so many people were handing over email addresses, their information, their digital profiles that are connected to every website they visit now. They were handing over all this information when they visited the Trump website or the ticketing site and then got the tickets. So in exchange for the tickets, you basically hand over information, whether you put it in yourself or not. That's what the Trump campaign gleans from people who interact with their digital assets, which is, again, why that video, Truth Over Facts, is a very savvy way to spend money before you enter the general election period, getting data. Now, that data is totally useless, right? Even data that would have been useful collected from actual Trump supporters is completely useless because it's 6,200 people, or maybe more than that, right? Maybe not everybody actually managed to show up. Maybe it's 10,000, still far less than the capacity of the stadium, but it's 10,000 people in a haystack of 1 million. So it does befuddle their efforts to collect valuable data from this rally. And the other thing it does is it makes the Trump campaign look stupid. But nothing makes them look more stupid than having 6,200 people in a stadium for 19,000. But yeah, he looks foolish. And apparently it sets him off, which is great because always when you're in a battle or a war, you want to aggravate your opponent, right? You want to needle them and make sure that they, encourage them to make hasty and poor decisions. However, I think we can say that Donald Trump pretty much fits that bill, and it hasn't kept him from becoming president yet. So we'll see what happens. I hear he's extremely upset, but the value of everybody purchasing or whatever, eating up all of those tickets, because again, no money's exchanged, so it's not that meaningful. The value of that action, I suppose, remains to be seen. There are two things. Well, we spoke about the data. The other thing that might be valuable is that it diminishes momentum for Donald Trump's campaign because his big kickoff was a total flop and everybody saw it. And if there's one thing that people don't want to do, it's bandwagon with a loser who also happens to be completely socially unacceptable. It's great when your racist friend is on the top of the world, but it's very easy to abandon that person because when they're not on top of the world, the social cost of affiliating with them is very, very high. So hopefully, this puts downward pressure on Trump's popularity. It becomes an endless death spiral where now the size of the rallies are increasingly diminishing. That being said, 6,200 people did put their lives on the line for this president just to hear him speak. And you can bet that those people, unless they're dead because they caught the virus and can't get sick and can't get out of bed or they die, you can bet that they'll be voting. And 6,200 is actually almost the margin of difference in one of the swing states that Trump won, which caused Hillary Clinton to lose. So don't laugh even at 6,200 people. 6,200 truly dedicated supporters can make the difference, which brings me to the last point, which is hundreds, maybe thousands of people took the action to go online and prank this dude, which is great. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm maybe questioning just how efficacious it was and whether or not it deserves the rep that it's getting. But what we can say is all of these people took an action. I implore every last K-pop stan, please take one more action. Join a phone bank, make a phone call, make a donation if that's what it takes. When canvassing resumes, knock on a door. Ask your parents to vote, because the idea is that these are Zoomers, so they're not yet 18. But if you can vote, make sure you vote. It's all well and good to go online and play a prank in a couple of clicks, but in the same number of clicks, you could make one phone call for the Democratic presidential nominee. In the same number of clicks, you could do some text banking. In the same number of clicks, you could sign up for a volunteer shift. And that is really what's going to win this election. It's nice to have these optical hits, these media hits, but those don't actually win elections. Voters win elections. And so contacting voters is the next proximate thing voting yourself. So I'm only asking that if you know somebody who got a bunch of tickets and they think that's a great thing that they did, ask them to do one more great thing that's valuable to changing the outcome of the election. And that is phone banking, text banking, knocking on doors, sending postcards. There are so many things, honestly. Like I can't even run down a complete list because there are a lot of things that you can do that don't require you to see another person or be in contact with them, like physical contact with them, to move voters and shift this election. And that's what we need to be focused on now, which is not to say don't do the funny things. Funny things are great. They set a good narrative, and a good narrative can also be the difference between winning and losing. But the narrative is not everything, right? You can have a great narrative and still lose so long as you don't do the groundwork. So that's all I'm asking of our K-pop stans. Let's go to some of these comments, and then we'll go to the last topic of the evening that I picked out, at least. Michael Kaplan, I thought that the Bamboozle Boys were the far-right hoodlum group. Haha, just kidding. Of course, that is the Proud Boys, Michael Kaplan, Determined must have been displaying some sort of skill. Oh, Federline must have been displaying some sort of skill. Federline, just look up Popo Zhao. All right. That's how much skill Kevin Federline had. And I think that you'll see, and mind you, to prank Kevin Federline, people spent money. They spent a lot of money buying out theaters so that he would play in front of an empty crowd. It's not like a presidential thing where you could just show up and get in. You had to reserve tickets in advance in exchange for cash. Now, I think they might have canceled those purchases before the concert, like right before the concert, but I'm not sure. But look, it's a next level of determination. But look at Popo Zhao, and you tell me who's worse, Donald Trump or Kevin Federline's music. Michael Kaplan, sorry, Donald, we're just not that into you. One of the swing states that Hillary narrowly lost is not Oklahoma. That's true, but who's to say that these are people from Oklahoma? Although I think we can probably say that a lot of them were from Oklahoma because one could reasonably assume that a mass of people will be proportional. The attendance will be proportional to the radius of the event, but there could have been thousands from other swing states. Because people camped out overnight, right? They could have been from other Oklahoman cities, or just as easily for people who were there the day before from any other state. Dorian Key, Biden raised more money than Trump this quarter. Yes, a very promising sign. But Trump still has twice the money on hand. This is likely, but let's look at this now. Trump has twice the money on hand, lags in fundraising today, and the last two presidential elections cost $1 billion basically each. Each side spent $1 billion. Trump's at $282 million, which means he's about a quarter of the way to what should be his ultimate goal. If he lags behind in fundraising now, it will be interesting to see whether he gets completely overtaken and ends up losing the money race. He could still lose it big league. Simon Sachs, well said, Ben. No substitute for participating in the process. I want to be clear. Pranking Donald Trump by ordering up a lot of tickets to a rally, while the effect is debatable, and again, we can't even concretely say that it impacted attendance. While the effect is debatable, it is doing something. But there is no substitute for voter contact, and there will never be a substitute for voter contact. I was doing phone calls for Sam Elise Lopez yesterday, as I said, and I had several conversations. And one person very explicitly, they said, I'm going to go with the person who called me, and that's you. And that's because people respond heavily to talking to a candidate. They feel, if you take the time to reach out to me, I'm much more inclined to support you. And two, when you have real volunteers calling people and asking folks to support a candidate, people respond to the fact that folks are devoting their time to the support of a particular candidate for office. Like, it's very meaningful. Voter contact is incredibly persuasive. And so, again, while we can't say what impact getting all those tickets did, we can certainly say that it takes only a little bit more effort to write a postcard, to do a text bank, to make a phone call, to sign up to volunteer. All of these things are only one step removed from taking the time to go online, fill out a form, and get a bunch of tickets to Donald Trump's rally. So I just ask that all the Zoomers out there who can't vote, make sure you contact voters and urge them to do the right thing. All of the K-pop stands, it's funny, it's hilarious, that's fantastic. One more step, just one more step, and you don't even have to do it a lot. With all of the folks who got those tickets, we only need you to do it one or two times, and it's meaningful. It's absolutely meaningful. Dorian Key, who are your top three choices for VP? Do you think Warren is out of the running now because she is not black? I don't think she's out of the running, but even though I like Elizabeth Warren, she's actually not my first choice for VP because I do think it should be a black woman. I think that right now the symbolism is strong. I think there are very many progressive, intelligent black women who can do that job well. It doesn't have to be Elizabeth Warren, even though I think her policies and her policy mind are the best and the sharpest. It doesn't have to be her because there are other smart, competent people who it could be. And the black community has held up the Democratic Party ad infinitum. They are the reason that we're in the game at all. And if that's what they want to see, I think it's about time that we told them that we're appreciative. Yes, Barack Obama was there for 4 years, but how many times can you tell somebody that how many times can you tell your greatest ally that you value them? Yeah. And so Elizabeth Warren, I think, would be great. She'll be great in the Senate. I'd love to see her as Senate leader. LBJ once said that the vice presidency is where careers go to die, and that he should never have given up the leadership of the Senate. And I think he would have believed that till the day he died if John F. Kennedy had not been assassinated. So I'd rather now Elizabeth Warren, first female president. I think there's a lot of reasons Elizabeth Warren would want to be vice president. There's a lot of historical things, a lot of history shattering moments that she can achieve if she becomes vice president. But I would love to see her as leader of the Senate. And I don't necessarily think that she's not in my top 3 because all of the reasons I mentioned. So are my top 3 picks? I have no freaking idea. I haven't given it that much thought. I really should. No, I don't even know why I should. It's not going to have a real impact on what Joe Biden does. And but that's sort of my logic around the decision. Tell us more about the education nonprofit. The first thing I'll tell you is it's not a nonprofit. It's a startup. It's a private startup that's education technology. But beyond that, I'm not going to go into it right now. Michael Kaplan, I was trying, I have to make my money somewhere. I can't just do I do a lot of, I talk, I do civic lessons, and sometimes I get paid for that. But a lot of times I just do it out of the goodness of my heart. Basically everybody needs a job, even me. And it'd be cool to be the only reason really to be elected, I guess, to do good things and do policy. But one of the best parts about being elected for me is if I were elected, it would be my job to do this sort of organizing stuff and talk about how people can participate in democracy and actually have the power to help amplify that. But otherwise people need real jobs sometimes. Just sometimes. Michael Kaplan, I was trying for more influence on the sly wink for the Federline comment. More influence. I am sorry, I do not understand the nature of that comment. Lily says, I'm so glad Trump doesn't sing. Yes. Hey, but you know who does? Barack Obama. He's not bad. Dorian, which state did Trump win by only 6,500? No, he won Michigan by 10,000. So 6,500 is a sizable fraction of that difference. And I think we can safely say there are more Trump supporters than showed up at the event. Why the event was so poorly attended, I think, is up for debate. But I certainly think that. But let's understand this. Trump supporters are willing, at least 6,500, 6,200, at least 6,200 of Trump supporters are willing to travel, stay overnight in Tulsa, and go into an environment which is certainly, I think they believe, is unhealthy. They might doubt that coronavirus will kill you or that it's a pandemic. When they know that it exists and that they might catch the flu, quote, flu, because of the rally. And so people were still willing to do that, and they were willing to sign away their rights for liability. That is it. Those are some pretty big hurdles that I think if you ask people to do that for Joe Biden, they'd just be like, nah, I'm not going to a freaking rally that asks me to waive liability in the middle of a pandemic. So, these are zealots, if you will. Dorian, what is Biden's China and Russia policy? I'm worried we're getting a Chamberlain. Yeah, well, a lot of progressives are worried we're getting a war hawk. So Biden is let's just say that Biden was one of the architects of the Iraq War. I mean, it's kind of true. It's not like he was in the administration, but the hearings that he held as chair of the Intelligence Committee, I think he was chair, yeah, of the Intelligence Committee, or maybe it was the Armed Services Committee, were definitely seemed to have, he clearly had a tilt. So I think that Biden is a pretty aggressive foreign policy person. I don't know what his stance on China is specifically, but I'll see if I can find out. I don't think, however, that Biden is interested at all in war with China, because I think that Biden is not culturally, but foreign policy-wise, he is a conservative. Like, really, he's a conservative. He does not want to do anything that's risky, first of all, but he does value, or how to put this? I believe that Biden he's basically a conservative in that he believes in American force projection, but he doesn't want to get into a fight that isn't with somebody smaller than him, right? Okay? That's basically how it goes, right? It's fine. It's all well and good to pick on Iraq, which should, in theory, have posed no military challenge to the United States, and in fact didn't, right? The military challenge was minor. The occupation challenge was major. I think that Biden is very strong on projection of American ideals and strong on projection of American power, but has zero interest in being involved in a conflict where the United States does not have a significantly obvious upper hand. And getting into a land war in Asia or any sort of war with China is, I think, very far from the top of his agenda for those reasons. I think I do think he'd be quick to sanctions, for example. Julian Ballington, I convinced a voter to vote for Sam today. I talked to another person who voted for her because she took the time to explain some political facts to him. Hey, Sam Lee is a great organizer and has done a lot of work in that community, and I think would be a great representative and is basically incorruptible, or far less corruptible than others. She's certainly not a politician. And I've organized with her personally. I was very happy to have made phone calls. And she texted me afterwards. She was like, thanks for making phone calls. I think some people think, I'm like big for my britches. Like, they're like, oh, Ben is like some leader in some progressive movement in Manhattan. But let me tell you, I am not above making phone calls. When I say K-pop stans and Zoomers make those phone calls, all these folks who ordered those tickets, and it was, I know old people who did the ticket thing, mind you. So I don't want to give young people all the credit, but, I'm not saying to people, who did that internet thing, I'm not saying, do it so that I can just chill out. Like, I do the thing. I do the thing because I know it's important. And when I want somebody to win, I do the thing. There are other things that only I can do. I have some technology knowledge. I have a very deep understanding of election law, and, at least in New York. And I can write endorsements because I do have mild influence in some pockets of some communities. But just doing the groundwork, I do that. That's important. Dorian Key, Bolton's book. Oops, I'm running out of power. So where is this? Bolton's book is coming out Tuesday. Well, guess what, Dorian Key, and you're going to love this. Bolton's book was released for free on the internet because people, because people thought that it was wrong of him to profit off of what he should have told Congress under oath in his testimony. So I subscribed to that position, and you know what I did? I downloaded his book so I can start reading excerpts from it. But we won't do it tonight. We'll do Magna Carta, and then maybe tomorrow we'll start with John Bolton's book. Yeah? Julianne Ballington, I cried every time a person said they were voting for her. I didn't, but okay. I view crying as sort of, it's nice, I guess. Seems a bit like a waste of time. But whatever, just got to power through. Agreed, we need a black woman, presumably for vice president. And yeah, I agree with you. So just the camera's a little shaky because I put the plug in and the plug's on the bottom. So sorry. Michelle Obama for VP, says Lily. I'm going to say this. I don't believe anybody who's occupied the White House should ever occupy the White House again. I am extremely suspicious. And I am not even just suspicious. I have an extreme distaste for dynastic rule. And one of the main reasons I opposed Hillary Clinton in 2008 was because of an Economist article that said if Hillary Clinton wins in 2008, there will be an entire generation of people who will have not known a president who was not a Bush or a Clinton. So people would have gone 18 years from, being born to voting age without having known somebody who wasn't a Bush or a Clinton. It's one of the main reasons. It's a huge reason I opposed Hillary Clinton in 2008. And I don't want to see any of Donald Trump's children in office. I don't want to see any of Barack Obama's children in the White House. I don't want to see Michelle Obama in the White House, honestly. And that's just me, but I find it such an important thing. In the United States is so prone to dynastic rule and hereditary dynasty. It happens all the time in the Senate and other political offices because of the way our elections are structured. Because we don't have proportional representation. So I don't believe in it's just there's too much of this elitism. Dorian Key, he's having a book signing at the Union Square Barnes and Noble. Oh, you want to go order a bunch of tickets and then not attend? I just don't want Stacey Abrams. She wants it too much. What do you want? You're like, oh, Pete Buttigieg, he really wants to be president, and then it's like, oh, Stacey Abrams, she wants it too much. What's the difference, pal? It was great that Buttigieg was ambitious for you, and now Stacey Abrams is too ambitious. She just wants to be vice president, and she's actually got life experience. Dorian Key, Trump would still have won. Would have still won if he lost Michigan. What has the Democratic Party done to win over working class whites since 2016? Bro, that is a much longer discussion. Please bring it up tomorrow when I've got some time, because I actually have to go back to work in a little bit. Michael Kaplan, he was on an architect of the war. He was chair of foreign relations, not intelligence, and Bush lied to all of us. Go back, watch the hearings that he held, and tell me that he was not pushing for that war. All right? Just go watch the hearings. Watch the testimony watch the people that he brought in to testify, because that's a choice, and watch the questions that he asked them. And, come back and tell me that dude did not have an agenda. Dorian Key, we all know Cheney and Rumsfeld were pulling all the strings, not GW. George Bush got up there and said, we're going to war with Iraq. He tried to kill my dad. And so were other people pulling the strings? I don't know. On Iraq, on execution, absolutely. On all the terrorism stuff and the erosion of civil liberties, maybe. But is George Bush not culpable? He is. He's the goddamn president. And this speaks well to W's leadership. George Bush was a disaster. I thought he'd be the worst president of my lifetime. Maybe even in the history of the United States. But no. Dorian Key, if we have a real crisis like China doing another Tiananmen Square in Hong Kong, or an all-out China's invasion of Taiwan, would Biden have the guts to do drastic measures? Maybe for Taiwan, Hong Kong is Chinese territory. It's not a crisis it's not an international crisis if China does a Tiananmen Square on Hong Kong. Like, it's the same crisis as China doing Tiananmen Square in Tiananmen Square, which was, not anybody's business but China's, basically. Nobody's going to intervene in China's sovereign affairs. As for Taiwan, totally different matter. Will Biden be there for Taiwan? Did you know that there's 3 carrier groups in Asia, in the Pacific right now? If you want to talk about somebody gearing up for conflict, look at Donald Trump. Now, we'll see if it's all bluster, and certainly Donald Trump benefits from a war, so we can't say that it's any sort of pro-democracy policy agenda per se, but I think Biden probably has the will to I think he has the ultimately to pursue a military solution to an altercation with China, although I don't think that would be his first choice, far and away not his first choice, because again, I believe Joe Biden is a conservative and is really looking only to project force against countries that have no capacity to resist. Dorian Key, or a Russian annexation of Belarus or another part of Ukraine. I think it's there. Okay. Whatever happens in Europe is going to be up to the Europeans. It's going to be what the NATO allies want. I think Joe Biden will go way out of his way to reestablish regular NATO relations. and to back up our NATO alliance. So whatever happens there will be the call of our European partners. Lily, I should have taken a screenshot of your big for my bridges post. This one, yeah. Now I can't do it. One of my hands is occupied with the phone. How much power do I have? Not enough to put this down. Dorian Key, according to Bolton, Trump agreed with Xi that the U.S. has too many elections, and Trump told Xi that he should have a third term. Yeah, we spoke about this 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago. We were talking about Bolton. Donald Trump is a freaking autocrat, and if he could be president for life, he would. It's the most money he's ever made. How about that? The dude is constantly in debt and going bankrupt. This is the most money he's ever made, and it's easy. Michael Kaplan, they were 20 years with only Bushes and Clintons. Already? Let's see. You had 4 from Senior, 8 from Clinton, so that's 12. Yeah, so it would have been another 8, which would have been 20 if Hillary had been elected. Dorian Key, do you think there is any national pride among the Chinese American community within the U.S. about how powerful China has gotten in the past 40 years? Yes, the answer is yes. I know this for a fact. There are 2 factions in the Chinese community. There is a Taiwan faction and a mainland faction. And you have to, if you're in New York politics and you're in the Chinese politics, which I am as a Chinese person, it's something you have to navigate. Julianne Ballington, but mind you, all of them are nobody's pro-China over America because obviously they all emigrated here. Julianne Ballington, a Kennedy is running for Senate. Lol. What's that got to do with anything? He's annoying attractive. I don't know what that means. But there is a Kennedy running for Senate. He's waging a primary in some state. Massachusetts? I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, to dynasties. You were talking about dynasties. Yes, absolutely. James King. And I was reminded because I just started reading James' quote. James' comment. If we had dynasties that were continuously producing highly effective administrators, I might be vaguely sympathetic to that cause. Otherwise, I'm against it for all the reasons laid out. The thing about dynasties is they don't reliably produce effective administrators. Merit selection, or at least competition, produces lines of effective administrators, which is why you don't want dynastic rule, because it's a complete grab bag. It's a total genetic lottery. And the capacity of any individual person in that dynastic line is totally unknowable, which is why competition is better. The United States, for all of its failings, and we are experiencing one right now, generally picks a good candidate for president. It's just, that's how it is. Because we have competition. And competition, I think, is a much better guarantor than dynastic lineage. Julian Ballington, or maybe boringly attractive are the correct words. I don't know what that means. I think it's a reflection of his personality and probably policy. Lol. What does boringly attractive mean? Michael Kaplan, bring back the Warren shirt. Yeah, well, I basically choose a shirt and then I wear it for a few nights because during the day I'm just at home and not to give too much information, but I'm not wearing a shirt. So the shirts only see very minimal use every day for however long the show is. So eventually I'll bring back the Elizabeth Warren shirt. It's in the rotation, and then I wash these things when they've had a few nights and I've got some time. Michael Kaplan, 4 for homework. Oh. Sorry, Michael Kaplan, 4 for HW, Herbert Walker Bush, 8 for Bill, 8 for W. Right, I forgot. I cannot believe I forgot about crappy old W. Right. So we had a whole generation of people who were born and came of age without knowing anybody who wasn't a Bush or a Clinton as president. And that, to me, is completely unacceptable. And putting another Clinton in office after that, not doing it. I was so happy Barack Obama won. And he was an amazing president. But I'm not really interested in seeing Michelle Obama be vice president or president. I don't care how unifying she is. She's obviously unifying because a lot of people feel strongly about dynasties. Like they feel familial ties. They feel ties to families that have been in power. And I think that is extremely dangerous. And anything that we can do to cut that off at the knees, we should be doing. And for me, that means I will never be able to support Michelle Obama for president or vice president, nor Malia, nor Sasha. And the same goes for whoever becomes president next. I'm going to put a big ixnay on any of their nuclear family becoming another entrant to the White House. Probably even their extended family, at least for several presidencies. Like I can kind of see, okay, Teddy Roosevelt and FDR, I'm like okay with, not great, would prefer if it didn't happen. The Adams, like I thought those were way too close together. I would prefer never seen another Adams in office. Like, but that is where I will fall on all of these things forever. And it's unfortunate. I don't even know, like, obviously if it were Michelle versus Donald Trump, I'd have to go with Michelle, but Jesus. Dorian, lol. I don't know what you're laughing at. Lily, can you get a shampoo company to sponsor this talk and just throw in some extra hair flips? Yeah? It's soft. Like I have really soft hair. Lily, something dynasties, I think it becomes a familiar brand. I don't know what WRT means. Writing. I don't know what WRT means. But dynasties, it becomes a familiar brand, which is, yes, brands. That's how it is. Dorian Key, could Trump legally run for a third term? No. Not unless he gets the something amendment repealed. 27th, maybe? No. 27 is important. Is that women's rights? No, that's 19. 27? Whatever. Unless he gets the amendment repealed, barring people from serving 3 terms, or really more than 2 terms, he will not be able to legally serve a third term as president, which is great. Lily, can you still vote in Canada? Do you vote Liberal? Lily says, with regards to dynasties, I think it becomes a familiar brand. And indeed it does. And that is what's so dangerous, because dynasty feeds itself. The more familiar you become with the dynastic family or dynastic tradition, the more it reinforces itself. Therefore, we should never, ever allow anybody to serve as president who has had an immediate relative or somebody who would be considered next of kin or really extended family serve prior. Like that should just not happen. It's far too dangerous. Lily says, Dorian, yes, JT is a bro from back in the day. She's obviously talking about Justin Timberlake. Justin Trudeau. How delightful. See if he'll come on the live sometime, Lily. Thank you. Julian Ballington. He's conventionally attractive. What does that mean? Like he's just like good looking, like in the way that a person, like he's just like an attractive man. So he is very uninteresting. What does that mean? I can see that he's attractive, but his appearance is banal. Makes sense? I see. So you're just saying that like, so this is about his physical appearance. He is attractive, but not in any special way. He's just got sort of like good features. Yeah, he's just like run-of-the-mill good looking. Yes, I hear you. The only reason that makes sense is because in Flight of the Conchords, Mel says that Jermaine is attractive, but not conventionally attractive. And he's like, yeah? So Flight of the Conchords, very funny show. Dorian Key, Liberal is not the most progressive party, though. 20 sacks. 22nd Amendment is the one barring third terms. Thank you, Simon. The NPD, Dorian goes on, is the most progressive party. Michael Kaplan, Zoolander is attractive. Thank you. James Morris King, come on, Ben. That's a fine stand to take personally, but legally, if that's discrimination. Which one? About dynasties? Sometimes I just don't get through the comments quickly enough. James, please tell me which stance is fine, but otherwise discrimination. Julianne, which is a perfect allusion to the Kennedy dynasty in general. Just sort of generally looks good, but there's not really anything special on which you can hang a hat. Except for the fact that, except for the following, Jack was assassinated, Bobby was assassinated, and there you go. Lily, Dorian, almost, New Democratic Party. Okay, so they're talking about Canada in the comments now. If there's any Canadians watching, this is your moment. Dorian Key, if you could ask Bolton 2 questions at his book signing at Union Square, what would you ask him? What's the point? Like, I would ask him something about Donald Trump, but he's basically, why didn't you testify under oath? And will you testify under oath? Those are my 2 questions to John Bolton. That's all that matters. Why didn't you do your duty when you were called on to do it? And now that your book is out, will you please go do your goddamn duty? Lily, the Kennedys should definitely have gotten a shampoo sponsor. Yeah, they had great hair from what I hear. I mean, I wasn't around to see it, but the picture seems to demonstrate it. James Morris King, dynasties. Can't actually bar someone from running for president by accident of birth or marriage. Yes. Yes, that's true. Actually, marriage isn't an accident, to be fair, but the birth part you're probably right about. It probably would be unconstitutional to try and actually bar dynastic tradition or dynastic rule in the United States. A real detriment. Let's see what we got here. Arlene Taclay, new person. Hello, Arlene. Let's see what she says. We don't want socialism. We want America like it was when I was a kid. Life was respected then. Life is sacred. Know that. The only problem with certain people is they eat livestock, kill dogs. Something is disgusting. Stop the slaughter of innocent animals. Stop putting down good police officers. They come when we need them. The human hybrid maybe, messes up all the time. That's a waste. Well, what I can say is that even the most socialist people in the United States are not actually calling for what most people would consider socialism. The welfare states of Europe are generally considered capitalist, honestly. They're market-driven. They're social democracies. And ultimately, after the New Deal was first enacted, the United States was largely in line with them. A lot of these labor rights and what have you have been eroded over time, but I don't know when you grew up, but if we're talking about the period between 1950 and 1980s, before the tax rates were getting changed drastically by the Republicans and the unions were being busted, like the coal miners, the United States was significantly more in line with those social democracies in Europe than with the United States of today. After all, the highest tax rate, the tax rate for our high earners, the top tax rate was something like 70 or 80%, even into the 1970s. Public colleges were effectively free. City University in New York, which was the poor man's Harvard, so to speak, as it was called, was free. You could afford to go to almost any school with a minimum wage job, which is impossible now. So, I hear that. And ultimately, so much of what people want is just a more just and fair society. And there are a lot of ideas for how to get there. But going back to what the United States used to do actually would go a long way towards that. It's this devotion to free market capitalism and shareholder value that developed in the 1980s that is one of the main detriments that's taken us down a pretty dark path, at least as I see it. Julianne Ballington, yes, but does the assassination of these Kennedys have anything to do with actual policy or good governance? No, not at all. In fact, it's bad governance to kill your leaders. Michael Kaplan, Constitution bans titles of nobility. Yeah, but that says nothing about dynastic tradition. Dynastic tradition is just the idea that one family continually occupies political leadership. James Morris King, you got botted. Congratulations. I don't know. That could be a real person. I have people who comment on this is on my political Facebook page, mind you. It's no longer on my personal page. So, people from all walks who live in New York can come and comment. I'm grateful for the debate. James King, you're moving up in the social media world. Well, there are a fair number of people watching tonight, so that's nice to see. Tell your friends, I'm on YouTube, I'm on whatever this is, Facebook. Click the share button. I'll make a YouTube that's like bit.ly/Benyi YouTube, and then you can share the YouTube, and they're all there. Julianne Ballington, Google Jolie Lade. I really can't believe you didn't know what conventionally attractive meant. Lol. I also don't know who Jolie Lade is, so sorry to blow everybody's mind. Okay, we're 55 minutes in. I basically got to go. So let's do some Magna Carta since I've reached the end of the comments. And yeah, and then I got to run because I'm late for the thing that I said I would do, and I have just enough power to pull this off. With regards to debate, oops, that's very Voltairean of you. Hey, I'm an ENTP all the way, pal. Michael Kaplan, are you consciously doing the hair flips now? No, I'm doing it. Can you see this? The hair is in my eye. Just because my hair looks great doesn't mean that I'm obsessed with it. I happen to think it's my best feature, but it is literally in my eyes. So, you know, I have to do it. I have to do it, folks. Okay, let's look at a little bit of this. What am I looking at? Magna Carta. Here we go. Okay. What do you think? Bets on whether or not we're just going to continue the list of things that the royalty can't take? What does MK mean? Laugh, laugh, laugh. So laughing so hard you've got tears in your eyes. You need your own stands. Well, Lily, all it takes to have a stands is for people to say that they're standing with Benyi. Would you like to volunteer? Would everybody here simply go online and say, I stand Benyi? That would be great. That'd be hilarious. Share this video and say I stand Benyi, and then we'll get this. Then we'll get this thing started. Are you in the pro-Taiwan faction or the pro-mainland faction? I am not going to answer that. On Dorian, you know where I stand. You know where I stand on democracy. I would like China to be unified in a democratic governing structure. Get a beret. I am no. I like my hair. I like it. It's cool. I don't mind doing this. I just need to do it to get out of my eyes. Oh, Michael Kaplan. She was referring to Michael Kaplan, asking if I was constantly doing the hair. Okay, listen, enough with the hair. Here's the deal. We will not keep the lands of people. Oh, we already did that one. We also did the fish one too. Okay, here we go. The writ called precipice shall not in future be issued to anyone in respect of any holding of land, if a free man could thereby be deprived of the right of trial in his own lord's court. I have no idea what that means. What's the right of what's the writ of precipice? Writ of precipice. I have habeas corpus, but in law, in the United States, a precipice is a document that either A, commands a defendant to appear and show cause why an act or thing should not be done, or B, requests the clerk of a court to issue a writ and to specify its contents. Okay, so basically it means you have to show up. Or to show up to say that something shouldn't be done, or requires a clerk to specify its contents of the court. The contents of what? Okay, I don't know what that part means, but I think only the former applies. So our English law, our English common law for the day, the writ called precipice, which is to say the requirement that somebody show up to a court to say why something should not happen, shall not in future be issued to anyone in respect of any holding of land, if a free man could thereby be deprived of the right of a trial in his own lord's court. So basically, if there's something going on in regards to land, they can't summon you to the court if that would mean it would deprive you of the right of a trial in your own lord's court. Okay, so basically, if I'm reading this right, this entitles you to local jurisdiction. and I don't know if I'm reading that right, so maybe somebody can help me out here. Or maybe somebody wants to look this up for tomorrow. The writ called precipice shall not in future be issued to anyone in respect of any holding of land, if a free man could thereby be deprived of the right of a trial in his own lord's court. I believe this is creating jurisdiction. You're entitled to local jurisdiction. Julianne Ballington, it honestly looks better like this than when it's short. Yeah, well, it's hot. It's hot under here. Lily, I'm so proud of how I've steered this conversation towards the vapid, i.e. Ben's hair. Thank you, Lily. You add so much to the discourse. Michael, I think it means it can't take you out of your region to be put on trial in another one. There we go. Thank you. Sounds similar to a trial by a jury of your peers. I don't know about that. That's a completely other thing. I mean, you can have a jury of your... I think it's about jurisdiction, about like where you're entitled to have your case heard. You can't jurisdiction shop. Right. No change of venue. Although you can request change of venue in the United States. But yes, you can't jurisdiction hop. So that's actually pretty big. That's pretty big, folks. Like, we're getting a lot of really the fundamental bases of English, of like American law, which is based on English common law here. Shall we do one more? There shall be a standard measures of wine, ale, and corn, quote, or parentheses, the London quarter, throughout the kingdom. There shall also be a standard width of dyed cloth, russet, and haberject, namely 2 ells within the selvages. Weights are to be standardized similarly. So standards are important, but I have no idea what... You probably saw my face puckering up. I don't know what ells are. I don't know what selvages are. I don't know what a haberject is. But basically, this is the idea that to facilitate commerce, the following things shall be measured in a standardized form. And this is really, really important for trade. Now, ale and corn and wine, pretty common goods, so I can see that. Also dyed cloth, russet, and I don't know what the hell haberject is, but cool. And whatever. And then weights are just to be standardized similarly, and weights are big. Weights ushered in the modern era of commerce with standard measurements for how much stuff there is and standard measurements for coinage. Because at the beginning, coins were a certain weight of a certain precious metal, like an ounce of gold or, say, a pound of silver. Okay, so that's big. That's great stuff. And these are all things that we see, that we observe in our modern society still. Okay, that's it for tonight. I'm glad everybody had a good time this evening. Please don't forget to share and say that you stand Ben Yee. And I'll see you tomorrow at 8:30. Until then.